Right, the big finish. Let's go.
I'm going to have to tell a lot of jokes to keep people awake here. All
yes,
right.
promise. Please eat your apps. Real food is coming soon. I'm Kerry Flynn, media reporter at Axios. I have the pleasure here of someone who I guess who has already been introduced, Nirav Tolia, as we know, employee 84 at Yahoo.
That was a very long time ago, but yes.
Yes. Well, clearly we're here to talk about Nextdoor and your new chapter with Nextdoor. Well, I guess 2.0 also with the chapter of Nextdoor.
3.0.
3.0.
Yeah.
All right,
I was the first CEO, there was a second CEO, then I came back.
Well, I guess I want to kick off actually that Nextdoor is about to enter like a 4.0 era. You've been talking a lot about the new Nextdoor, and I know one big part of that is wanting to make Nextdoor a daily utility for people, like again, an app that you go to every day. I think I've heard you want to like make every neighborhood feel like home. Tell me more about that. What does that look like in practice?
Yes, so I am one of the founders of Nextdoor and ran the company as CEO for the first 9 years. Actually, my number two is up here somewhere. It was Dan Clancy, who's now the CEO of Twitch. And so a lot of familiar faces here. But then I left, and Sarah Fryer, who's now the CFO of OpenAI, became the CEO. And then the company grew, it went public, and then ultimately things didn't go so great as a public company. In fact, as I joked, they were so bad that they asked me to come back, and it must have been really bad. I can tell you a funny story about Jim during that process. In fact, I will very quickly. So the company was not doing well, and there was a process during that time where we considered selling the company. And so Yahoo was a logical place for us to go talk. And I was on the board. I'd already been on the board, that entire time, even though I wasn't the CEO. And Jim looked at the company, and I was kind of at arm's length from the process because we are very close. And I will tell you this other little funny fact, since I'm embarrassing Jim right now. I know Jim because he was the head of product for a company called Ask Jeeves. If you remember the search engine, Ask Jeeves. This is over 20 years ago. Jim was known in Silicon Valley as one of the best product people in Silicon Valley. And the interesting thing about Ask Jeeves is we will now hear over and over and over again about the emergence of agentic interfaces. What was Ask Jeeves? It was an agent. So the guy is actually, he's a dinosaur that's relevant for the first time in decades, right? Anyway. We're looking to get the dinosaur interested in Nextdoor, and he calls me up, and I was very happily retired. I had gone from being CEO of Nextdoor to being an investor. I was executive chairman of a $7 billion technology fund, and as all the operators in the room know, there's operating and there's investing, and one of them is a lot less stressful than the other. I'll let you decide which one. So I was very happily being an investor, giving other people advice and not worrying about the advice after I gave it, right? The opposite happens when you're an operator. And I will never forget, I was sitting in my closet, my wife was doing something, and yes, Jim's amazing wife, Shannon Lanzone, introduced me to my wife. And we were talking, and then Jim called, and he said, all right, I want to give you a heads up. We're not going to be making an offer to buy Nextdoor. And I was like, okay. All right, what do you have to say? And he said, well, we've been friends for a long time. And so I want to tell you that I know Nextdoor is your baby. And I don't really know any way to say this, but your baby's ugly. And I'm not going to pay for the privilege of making your baby look good. But I have an idea. Is this true, Jim? Is this true or false?
I think you're paraphrasing.
I'm not paraphrasing. You definitely used the word baby, and you definitely used the word ugly. And you definitely said you were not paying for the privilege of making my baby pretty. And he said, I do have an idea. You need to go back, and you need to figure out how to make that baby pretty again. And so I was not thinking about that at the time, and my wife obviously loves Jim, and his wife, she likes you a lot less now, because I've come back and I spend no time at home again. But I did come back a year and a half. It was a great privilege to come back. There's a board member I have who told me once, a new board member as I came back to Nextdoor that I chose, and she said, everything's better the second time around. Second marriages, the second time that you go do something that you've done already. I'm not on a second marriage, nor do I plan to be on one, but I am my second time at Nextdoor. And I have to say, if you have the opportunity to go back to something that you really love and believe in, and you have fresh eyes and you're refreshed, because these things are grinds. And so you get out of one of these things and you spend almost a decade, and it's like a meat grinder, and you feel like you're not even yourself. But to come back, incredible privilege. So now to answer your question.
Well, I appreciate this dynamic duo right here. I can listen to this all night.
We should have been on stage together.
So I was right? He's saying I was right.
He's definitely saying you were right, because here he is going to explain that he fixed it. The baby's pretty now.
No,
the baby's very good.
The baby,
you should buy the baby.
The baby needs needs braces, and the baby's in that awkward stage, right? But Jim said this: great companies are built on great products, not great ideas. Nextdoor, I believe, is a great idea. The idea that we can use technology to make people feel closer physically around their physical worlds, right? I mean, Michael said this. Why are we at Cannes? We do everything virtually now, right? We need to have opportunities to reconnect in the real world. And so Nextdoor is very different than other social media platforms, because if Nextdoor is successful, we push people from the virtual world to the physical world. Very cool idea. In fact, if you've heard of Nextdoor, or if you use Nextdoor, the first time you heard about it or used it, you probably thought it was super cool. Then you started to use it, and it didn't actually deliver on that promise. Great companies, though, take great ideas and turn them into great products. And so what we need to do at Nextdoor, and what we're trying to do, and really this is the first inning for us, it will be the baby potentially getting braces and maybe a little bit of acne medication and, you know, whatever else, right? We are going to try to make the product as good as the idea. And that won't happen overnight, but if it does happen, to your point, you will rely on Nextdoor the same way you rely on all the other information sources, because today there is no easy way. It's the same thing as the summer of 2010 when we started the company. There is no easy way to know what's going around us. And where we live is one of the most important communities of them all. Not just economically. Remember, our homes are our largest investment in most cases. So economically, the amount of money that we spend on a home and the amount of money that we spend in our neighborhoods, our local areas, it's massive. But on a human level, we are tribal. We choose to live in a place because we believe that people who live there are like us. And it is so much better to feel like you're part of something than to feel alone. And that's the real human opportunity for Nextdoor.
Well, I'm very excited to see the new Nextdoor when it comes out, and also I'm excited to hear Jim's reaction to it. Like, I think that should be on the record.
He's a great product person, and I am very excited to show him.
Well, given that we're at Cannes, the other topic that I definitely wanted to talk about was what advertising looks like on Nextdoor. One topic in particular is I know that AI has been a part of the product for forever. Like, you use it when it comes to like helping generate local listings. You use it to, I think, identify like maybe telling users to be nicer on the platform.
Kindness reminder, yeah.
Yes. So how have you used AI when it comes to advertising, and how that's helped grow the business, again, as you're in this new era and improving the product?
Okay, so let me say a couple of things. So the first thing is, I do believe, as someone who's been around Silicon Valley forever, you know, the dirty little secret about being employee 84 at Yahoo is that I started my career in Silicon Valley in 1996, before most of these companies that are now household names were even conceived of. Now, Yahoo was a year old, to give you a sense of, you know, whatever, 29 years ago or whatever it was, right? So I've been around a long time. I do believe that AI is a platform shift that will be major. So it's overhyped for sure, as they always are, but I think it will change most of what we think about. It has already changed the enterprise. It will ultimately change the consumer side. Certainly it's going to change advertising. So that's point one. Point two is, Nextdoor has an opportunity to deliver national scale, but with local authenticity. So that's what we should be able to do. That is what we should be able to do for all the CMOs in this room. We should be able to make your brand, your company, your offering feel like a local offering, which is what people want to support in their neighborhoods. People don't want to buy coffee at Starbucks. They would rather go to the neighborhood coffee shop. But sometimes they walk into Starbucks and they notice there's a corner of Starbucks where they have a corkboard up, and it says news from the neighborhood. This is a real thing that you'll find at every single Starbucks. And so to be able to do that for large brands, to make them feel locally authentic, that's an amazing opportunity for Nextdoor. From an AI standpoint, We're not going to quite do what Zuckerberg said, right, which is completely disintermediate all the agencies, but we do need to make it easier for these national advertisers to create dozens, if not hundreds and thousands of different versions of their creative to make that local authenticity feel real. So we have 335,000 neighborhoods using Nextdoor, over 100 million verified neighbors. We are in 99% of the neighborhoods in the US, 11 other countries. So we have some scale. It's not Yahoo type scale, but we have some scale. To make the ad feel unique in every one of those 335,000 neighborhoods, that's something only AI can do. So I do believe that there's an opportunity for us to use AI for the big brands, and then as we think about small businesses, they barely have time to answer the phone, much less create amazing advertising. That's the other area where I think AI will be remarkable. I think it will ultimately also be on the consumer side at Nextdoor. Every neighborhood should have a friendly neighbor agent. Every neighborhood should have a place you can go to find out, where should I take my kids this weekend? What's the best dentist for my children? What's the best place for me to get a burrito, right? And in Nextdoor's case, for 14 years, neighbors have been having conversations about these things. So we can train those conversations into an LLM, and the Good Neighbor AI will be powered by real human conversations. So big opportunities.
You're giving me a little preview into that new Nextdoor. I'm excited. And also, I just think what you guys have is so fascinating when it comes to advertising landscape. Of you have like location-based, contextual. It's like all those things that people get excited by. Again, the people here. We are somehow like out of time, so we're gonna end on, I guess, the one fun thing-ish. What I find fascinating about you guys is you don't. Again, here at Cannes, you guys don't do like paid advertising. Like you are not really an advertiser yourself. I'm wondering why, and if that's true, like how do you get your message out? Like again, obviously we're here talking right now, so that's one way to communicate, but is there anything else you do?
Well, it's a great question. And so when we started Nextdoor, it was the third company that I'd started. And I'd made so many mistakes in the first couple of companies. I've been lucky. My first one went public. Second one was a complete failure. But when you're a serial entrepreneur, you think about what are the things that keep you up at night running those former companies. You don't want to be kept up at night by the same things. There are almost always new things that keep you up at night, but you don't want the old things. So when I thought about my experiences with paid marketing, when I thought about my experiences relying on Google for traffic, right? We wanted to create a company that could grow as a function of itself. And the companies that have done that are the social networks. None of the social networks have relied on paid marketing. They've all relied on virality. Now, virality is just a fancy word for their users evangelize the product to other users. And that is the way that Nextdoor started. In fact, we had this, I'll end with this kind of funny story. How many of you are Nextdoor users? At least at some point you were a Nextdoor user. Hopefully you'll come back. Did any of you join Nextdoor in the early years, 2011, 2012, 2013? Back then, there were no neighborhoods on Nextdoor. In fact, we had a game mechanic, which is if you came to Nextdoor and none of your neighbors were using Nextdoor, you could be the founding member of your neighborhood on Nextdoor. But in order to do that, you had 30 days to get 10 of your neighbors to join, and they all needed to verify their addresses the way you did. That was a game mechanic that got us off the ground, and that was ultimately how we grew. We were getting one very passionate person into Nextdoor and telling that person, you don't get to actually launch your neighborhood unless you bring 9 other people in. And that was one example of how we did marketing. That was a very cost-effective way, but it was very slow and steady. So it wasn't overnight. It's never a big bang when you're doing things like that. But we feel that if you build that strong foundation brick by brick, it can stand the test of time.
Amazing. Well, thank you. That was so fascinating. Also, I remember that I received a postcard in the mail also to join Nextdoor, which is good old-fashioned.
All the old school things.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we are over time. I think food is served, so let's go eat.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
I love you, Jim.
One last plug, and then I promise we're done, is Sarah Fisher and I have a new product called Axios Media Trends Executive. We would love all of you to please be subscribers to that. We go deeper on all the topics that we're talking about and more. If you need more info, if you need a discount code, find me after. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you.